Hi, this is the Magnificent Midlife podcast, and I'm Rachel Lancaster. This is where we celebrate women in midlife and beyond. We challenge the status quo and bash those negative stereotypes about being an older woman. We're not over the hill at 40, 50, 60. We're just getting started, and the world needs us now more than ever. I'll be talking all things midlife, about issues that matter, and sharing fabulous stories of amazing women doing very cool stuff. Now is our time. My guest today is Amanda O'Brien, and she's a digital publisher with 4 successful websites focusing on travel, pets, and information. She's a former marketing director at big corporations and an Australian who's made London her home. She's the boutique adventurer, and she's visited over 70 countries on her travels. Welcome, Amanda.
Thank you, Rachel. It's wonderful to be here.
I'm very excited to talk to you, and we have connected because we both make money off our websites, although as we were talking before I hit record, you're significantly more successful at doing it than I am. But I'd like to kick off by asking you, you switched in midlife to doing something pretty different to what you did before. So how did that come about?
Gosh, okay. So I was a marketing director. I used to work for Heinz, for those in the UK, Churchill Car Insurance, and I was with B&Q. And back in 2013, it must have been now, 2014, no, 2015. Sorry, I can't lose track of all dates. I decided to leave B&Q, and I sort of had like 3 or 4 months left to work there. And a friend suggested to me, well, why don't you try moving back to Australia? Because I had moved from Melbourne to London 13 years earlier with my now ex-husband, right? So we were married at the time. We were going to come over. We were going to earn pounds and see the world and fast forward our careers and then go back in like 5 years' time. Instead, we split up, and I stayed as I really loved my job. But I kept always saying, oh, I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back someday. I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back. But I was kind of like, how does that happen, right? I keep saying it, but what's that going to look like? Anyway, so a friend suggested this could be the time. So thank goodness I kept my flat in London and I rented it out. And then I organised renting somewhere in Sydney. I'm from Melbourne, but my brother lived in Sydney at the time. And theoretically, Sydney was supposed to be better for marketing jobs. And I thought, oh, that'll be something new. On the day I landed in Sydney, my father died unexpectedly, which was a lot. So instead of embracing my new life, I spent the first month basically organising his funeral and sorting my mother out with all bills and things like that, which she'd never done. And it was just the beginning of a year where everything went wrong. Like I chose the wrong flat because I had made this quick decision because my dad had just died. My mother was very difficult after my dad died. I went for different jobs. The only ones I got offered were the ones I didn't want. Just nothing seemed to be working at all. So I lasted about 8 months, and then one of my friends in the UK, who's very British, finally said to me, Amanda, it's time you came home. Because I kept thinking, I've got to give it 18 months. I've got to give it 18 months. And she just said, it's time you came home. And I thought, that's all I want to do. I just want to go home. I just want to go back to London. And around that time, I started my first website. And my thinking was, well, I'm not really working. I've got extra time. The future of all marketing is digital, and I don't know how to build a website from scratch. I know like the theory and the strategy stuff, but because I was kind of more senior by the time websites became a big thing, I'd never done the hands-on experience. So I was like, okay, I'll use this time to make a website. And I'm like, well, if I'm going to do anything, I should do travel because I've always been a passionate traveler and I lived overseas growing up. All that kind of thing. And as I was a marketer, of course, I set it up as a brand. So I decided, okay, boutique hotels was my thing, but also I wasn't a person that just wanted to go to some luxury hotel and lie by the pool. I loved getting out to different destinations. I really liked getting under the skin of places. The more exotic the locale, the better. So that's where the boutique adventurer came from. But at that point, I never for a minute thought it would be my career. Like I thought this will just be this thing I'm doing to learn how to build websites and I'll keep being a marketing director. Anyway, I had to wait a year to return to London because of renting houses out and things. And then a month before I returned to London, my mother died unexpectedly. So I lost both parents in 11 months and 1 day apart, which was a lot. So when I finally got back to London, I decided to take a few months off and to not look for a job or anything and just have some time to recover. But I was like, I can't do nothing. So I thought, okay, I'm going to do more on this website. And that is when I fell in love with it. And I also had a friend from university who lived in the US who was making a lot of money off his site that we had talked about it over the years. So I knew about the potential with advertising, etc. So I thought, you know what? I think I can make this work, but I think it's going to take about 3 years before I can earn any money, decent money. So I'm going to try consulting. So I started off, I was with Unilever for a little while, and then I started an 8-week, 2 days a week contract with UCL, University College London, with the Faculty of Medical Sciences. And I stayed at UCL for 5 years, basically working 2 days a week across various faculties and different areas, just kind of going from one contract to the next. And that became my thing, that was sort of covering all my costs and allowed me the time to start to grow the travel site until, of course, and I finally got it onto Mediavine, which is the big ad network for those that know, and it's the dream of every blogger to get their site onto Mediavine. My timing was impeccable because it was February 2020, just before COVID hit, and my traffic dropped.
And you were in the travel niche.
And I was in the travel niche. So luckily, I still had my consulting, and also a few months earlier, I'd always wanted a dog, right? But I was like, I can't, I travel too much. And then one of my friends got a Siberian cat. And I was like, where has this thing been my whole life? It's like a dog in a cat's body. So I had ordered my Siberian cat, Alexei, before the pandemic kicked off. So when I got him, it was June of 2020. And I didn't know anything about cats. So I was like, you know what? I think I understand this SEO thing a bit more now. And all my friends who were travel bloggers were doing food sites. And I didn't really want to do that because I was like, that's very time intensive for the long term. So I thought, I'm going to start a cat website. And because of what I knew, in 6 months, I had it onto Mediavine. So then a few months later, I was like, well, I kind of know this now and it's still locked down. I think I should do a dog site as well. So I actually bought an existing website because it had some domain authority on it and did that. And then about a month later, the website that I'd bought the dog site from advertised this site about facts, newinterestingfacts.com, which was a steal. And I also thought, well, I can always just do links to my other sites. So that was all. Yeah, I started 2020 with one website, just about to get onto Mediavine. And by the end of 2021, I had 4 websites on Mediavine. And also even with lockdown, I did a lot of evergreen content for my travel website, like top landmarks and things like that. So actually that was doing quite well.
So my listeners probably won't really understand some of that lingo, so I'm just going to explain. So
sorry, Rachel.
Don't worry. But maybe they will, maybe they won't. So Mediavine, and this is how we met because I'm on Mediavine as well. And Mediavine is this network that websites can join when they have a certain amount of traffic, and then adverts are put onto the website. And I think you don't even need to click on the adverts, do you? It's literally just if you've seen the adverts, then we get some money. And if we do a good enough job on driving traffic to our websites, then we can get more money from the advertising. And that is a factor of many things. And you mentioned domain authority. That is how respected your site is, how long it's been around, and therefore it will get a bit more traffic juice from Google, I think is the sort of simple way of explaining it maybe. And then SEO, of course, I think most people understand SEO, but it's search engine optimization. So this is something I've had to learn, is that I now am more focused on writing what people want rather than what I want to write. And that's been a big change because for a long time it was just, I'm going to write what I want to write, regardless of whether anybody's going to read it or not. But if you write from a search engine optimization SEO perspective, you're writing to drive that traffic, aren't you?
Yeah, you are. And I think it was a lot easier for me because of my marketing background. So when you're a marketing person, the only thing that matters is what your audience wants. What you want. I used to always joke the ideas I think are the best are always the ones that are going to fail because they always seem to fail in research. So it was always about, well, what does the audience want? It was never anything to do with what I wanted. Obviously, I chose the niches I went into. So for me, that was totally natural. But I know for people that are more from a writing background, etc., that's quite a difficult transition. Although I do believe it's possible to do both. You're just figuring out topics people type into Google. You can then address that topic how you like.
Well, it's all about the niche that you're in, isn't it? As you said, you picked a niche that excited you and you know, that you want to write about, anything about, basically, because you really enjoy it. And mine's the same. It's midlife and the issues that women especially are dealing with in midlife and beyond. So that can be anything. So it's all of interest to me. I'm just trying to be a bit more strategic about it. But I have a marketing background too, but very much B2B, not B2C. So I never thought about the consumer, the end consumer. I was just thinking about, how do I position this to another corporate? So I never quite got to that stage. But I'm trying.
Yet, Rachel. Yet.
Exactly. Oh, and so when did travel become your business instead of your leisure activity? When did you sort of make that transition?
So I think it happens slowly, and I think you soon learn every time you go somewhere. You're taking photos, which I did anyway. To be honest, I've always loved photography. It's really only become that I guess I do trips that are purely for my website that I wouldn't have done otherwise. Probably in the last 2 years, which is where I might go to places that I wouldn't have necessarily chosen, but I know there's a good opportunity there around search engine optimization and things like that. So, and in terms of my consulting work, I stopped all consulting last September. So yeah, I'm just about to hit 12 months of being a full-time digital publisher.
Very exciting. And you get to do what you love. I think this is what is so wonderful about it. And I think this is what's also exciting about this time of life as well, that we do have the confidence, and we eventually, if we manage to persuade ourselves that we can do these things. But you took that step and you've completely transformed how you live, haven't you?
Yeah, I have, which still seems kind of amazing to me, to be honest. I still feel like I've got to pinch myself. Did this really happen? And I guess, as you said, it's the huge benefit of being older as well. Like, even when COVID hit, I was like, look, this will get sorted in a year or two. The whole world's on board and people are always going to want to travel. That's never going to stop. I clearly remember, as I'm sure your audience do, September 11, and the huge drop off in travel after that. So I think that's the beauty to me of being older, is you stay a lot calmer. You don't catastrophize as much because you've seen stuff happen and bad stuff happen, but you've seen the world recover. And I always go back to core human needs. You can have as many COVIDs as you want, but the human desire to explore, to travel, is not going to go away. That's a core need. How they do it might change a bit, but it's a core need.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah,
for most people.
Right. It's really good, actually. I like that we don't catastrophize as much as other people might, who don't have that experience of having gone through it. It's funny you mentioned 9/11. I was actually in Manhattan. I was living in Manhattan when 9/11 happened. So I definitely had that experience, and I remember it very, very well, and how scary it was all of a sudden, and how, the fear factor was massive. But yeah, and as you say...
I was in Melbourne, but the terror, the fear around, what's going to happen next? Oh my gosh, is this going to change? Well, it did change the world, of course. But at the time, I think, and it's much more interesting to read about bad things that could happen, right? And that's what sells newspapers back then, or today drives traffic. So, of course, the media is going to take these into the worst case, because that's what our brains are wired to do as well, right? What's the worst thing that could happen? How do I plan? What do I do? Which again, I think it's the nice thing about bad things having happened, is you sort of know, well, bad things can happen and I can continue on, and things can get to a new normal, and that is the most likely outcome. That's how I try to think about it.
And when you go on these trips, are you traveling alone?
I am such a mix, Rachel. So sometimes with what I do, they're group press trips. So I'll be with other travel bloggers and or traditional journalists. Sometimes I go with another blogger. We'll invite each other onto the trip. When I've had a partner through this, which I did, I was with someone with him for the first couple of years. He came on a couple trips with me, and I've tried it with friends as well. and then maybe about a third of the time I go on my own, I would say, which used to be a huge fear of mine. I remember when I got divorced, I was so terrified of solo travel. And now I can't even fathom that. I'm so used to it. I'm so comfortable with it. Yeah, I always joke that I find myself good company. You know, it's kind of, it really, and it's actually quite nice to have sort of some me time. Ideally I like to mix it up on the trips.
But it's fair. I remember whenever I've traveled by myself, you always meet people, don't you? I think you meet more people when you're by yourself.
Well, you do. And what's nice is you absolutely do. And you spend longer talking to people. And also what I find is I often work with tourism boards, you know, the government bodies that look after the marketing of a destination. So when they know you're on your own, they'll often organise dinners for you or lunches with people. So you then get to meet some really interesting people that you probably wouldn't have had that if you were travelling with somebody else. And often that's why I guess I never feel lonely, because normally one meal a day I'm having with somebody else, and the other one I'm just going through my phone, doing all my updates, taking pictures.
And what have you learned from the solo travel? What advice would you have for women who, if they, you know, the same position? I think a lot of us, there's a lot of relationship breakdown in midlife. I think a lot of women are scared to contemplate life without having a partner to go places and do things with them. What advice would you have?
So the first thing I would say is, if you haven't done it before and you're very nervous about it, which is totally normal, is I would take an organised trip. So there's a lot of companies now that actually run trips that are planned for solo travelers, or even the big organised tour companies like Exodus or Intrepid. More than half of the people that go on their trips are traveling on their own. So that feels much safer because you've got people, you've got the support. And I've also found if you do the more physical trips, like for example, if it's a cycling trip, which I've done, I did Kilimanjaro with Exodus, those are actually the best ones to do because you're all in this experience together. So very quickly you're a group. It's not individuals so much. And I mean, I've got people on Facebook I'm still in touch with from Kilimanjaro, which was like 12 years ago, and sharing those memories. So something organized like that, or if you're not feeling like something as adventurous as that, there's a lot of spas that will offer like a 1 week trip that everybody arrives on one day and does classes. So you'll naturally meet people doing it. Or my favorite spa in the world is a place called Kamalaya in Thailand. And I've always paid to stay there. I've been 4 times. That's how much I like it. I virtually never go back anywhere. And they have things like they have a talking table at dinner. So if you're in the mood, you go to the talking table and other people come and join you. And often couples go to the talking table because they want to meet people as well, because they're a bit bored with each other. So I think, depending on where your mood is at, not everybody's ready to go into something a bit more adventurous or exciting, even if you're not feeling the best, but you really want a trip. I think spas are fantastic as an option for getting started on solo travel, or for anybody doing solo travel. Like, I still go and do that.
Those are brilliant tips. I like that. And I would totally agree with the physical activity. I joined, it was Exodus again. I think it was Exodus. And I joined, or Intrepid, and I joined a trip to Jordan, and it was a trek through Wadi Rum. And I am still Facebook friends with people that I met on that trip now. And it was at least 10 years ago. And it was amazing. And I think you're right. When you go through an experience like that, especially walking, there's something about people open up when they walk. I think they really do. Yeah. And people, I think it's something about, you're not looking at somebody, you're walking alongside them. And sometimes you have really great conversations. And when you're in somewhere as magnificent as Wadi Rum, it was just incredible. So yeah, I would definitely agree with that.
Yeah, I think it's a great shared experience. And I also found, as somebody kind of recovering from a divorce, blah, 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 I'd never been very fit when I was growing up or things like that. I didn't think that was for me. And I sort of discovered fitness much more in midlife. And it became this thing of like, could I climb Kilimanjaro? Like, no way. Exciting. And I did it the year I turned 40. because I decided, I'm like, I can't possibly feel old if I can climb Kilimanjaro. I think I was more worried about the lack of showers and the altitude. But anyway, I did actually cope okay. And it was such an amazing trip for multiple reasons. You know, that experience. I had a friend who was supposed to be coming with me who let me down and cancelled a month out. So I didn't mean to go on my own, but I did. But with the group, it didn't matter. And when I got back, it was just, I felt like this slightly different person because I was someone that had summited Kilimanjaro. And it was wonderful. It was this really tangible thing I could point to as a way of kind of, rebuilding myself after a marriage breakdown and all that sort of stuff. It became a powerful part of who I was. So yeah, I recommend it on many levels.
Brilliant. I'm going to have to go and do that now. Definitely. I'm going to put down the list of things I've got to do. Wow, that sounds brilliant. So what do you wish you'd known when you were younger about travel or travelling alone? Is there anything that you wish you'd known?
I mean, it sounds so silly to say. I wish I'd have known it's just not a big deal. And I don't think anybody's looking at you going, oh my God, who's that pathetic woman over there on her own? Do you know what I mean? Like, nobody's noticing you.
My mum still thinks that. She won't, well, she's not going to travel by herself now at 89, but for years I would go on holiday with her. She wouldn't go because she thought people would be taking pity on her and therefore she would be putting them out because they'd take pity on her. Bonkers, isn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, as I said, it's surprising how much, I've got lots of friends who are in successful marriages who have been around, but they want me on their trips, right? Because they're together and been together for ages. Like, they're looking for something, I get invited lots more places that I can go, which is so nice. But nobody's looking at you. Nobody cares. Nobody thinks lesser of you. If anything, the majority of people think more of you, that you're comfortable enough in your own company, that you can do this. And one thing that's also made me feel better is the fact that for me, it's also my business now, but you don't have to have a travel blog to do that. You can easily go, oh, you've got an Instagram account, or you could start a website. It could just be a side interest for you, but it might make you feel better about being on your own, because if you meet people, oh, I'm doing this for my website. I'm looking at maybe building a travel website. Sometimes that's a great thing to make you feel a little bit better about it if you are feeling that insecurity. But I can't believe now how comfortable it is for me compared to how terrified I was of traveling solo like 12 or 13 years ago.
We can build up all these stories in our heads, can't we? All these narratives that really, if we just knock them down like dominoes, and it's just like, it's fine.
I think everyone's too busy worrying about themselves. They're not really worrying about you. That's kind of what I've learned.
It's like we always think other people are going to look at the way we look, aren't they? But nobody bothers. Nobody looks at how you look. They're just bothered about how they look.
Exactly, yeah. And again, it's another nice thing about getting older, I think, is you realise that's the case, and you're hopefully more relaxed and happier, most importantly.
So what do you love about being an Aussie in London?
Well, obviously, it's a point of difference, says the marketer in me, to have that background. I have a lot of Australian friends who live here that are, kind of like a family. Luckily, one of my brothers also lives in London, which is great. So I get to see him very regularly, and my sister-in-law and my niece and my nephew. And I guess you've got that. I think the Australian kind of pragmatic, let's get on with it attitude is a good thing. But I think I've learned a lot from the English. And it's funny, one of the reasons I found it difficult in Australia again is I used to be a very black and white person. This is right, this is wrong, it's all not hard. And after several years of living in the UK, I realised life's really not like that. Life is much more shades of grey. And I changed a lot. So when I went back, Australia hadn't changed, but gosh, I had. And I struggled with the black and white. And also, to be honest, it was quite embarrassing to remember how black and white I used to be. So I think I was also a bit mortified about that. So that was a bad reminder. Hopefully 20 years into being a Londoner, I've kept some of the good Aussie things and brought on board some of the good English things. Yeah. I had a terrible time with the rugby the other night when Australia played England. I was so torn. I was like, I have to do Australia because I was born here. But I was like, well, I'm really happy whoever wins.
Yeah, double whammy. You win either way, don't you?
Exactly. No matter what, I'm happy for the winner, but I'm also going to be gutted for the loser no matter what as well. So,
it's really interesting, isn't it? I'm always fascinated by cultural windows and being the outsider and looking in. And I guess that's probably also why you love the travel so much. And I love travel because I love being the foreigner. And I've lived abroad, and it's fun to be the foreigner, to be the person who's a bit different but not that different, especially when the language is the same. It's that makes it useful.
I completely agree. I think that's also the pleasure of one of the huge benefits of having traveled a lot is realizing people are intrinsically mostly the same everywhere. But what's really interesting is watching how they've developed or customs or ways they live their lives that are very different from ours, but it might be, in response to similar needs. Like I was in Bhutan in November, which really kind of blew me away. And also, here's another benefit of being older is with Bhutan, the company I was working with, they couldn't afford a lot of the stuff that other people I work with, do in terms of flights. And Bhutan has a tourism tax, and they can't pay that. I have to pay that. So for me, I was able to kind of go, I don't mind, I'll pay for some of this because I know I'm going to have an amazing experience. And I also wanted to work with this tour company and help them. I ended up doing some marketing consultancy for them while I was there. And, probably those articles will never make huge money on my website, but it was an opportunity to have an experience and do something with a bit more purpose, which I really enjoyed. And also the way they live their lives. It's funny thinking about getting older. All their older people are very well taken care of. We can all move to Bhutan if we get stuck, guys. And basically, it's as a society, it's very set up for aging. And they've actually got a really high divorce rate, which I was very shocked by. And get this, a lot of women and men, as they get older, become monks or nuns and decide to finish off their life that way. Maybe it's because Buddhism, you're going to be coming back, it's like get some extra points. I don't know. But it's very interesting there because, Buddhism, they have the gross national happiness, which is one of their key metrics as a country. And we met with some people and I'm like, what does that actually mean? Like, what does that mean? And there's economic measures in there as well. And they do surveys. But a lot of it is they run programs through the schools, and the kids themselves will come up with what do they think the key barriers are in their school to happiness, which and might be it's a program they develop around bullying and how to deal with bullying, or it could be an eating disorder for a girl or whatever it might be. So that was really interesting. It's quite a different country, and they don't have a lot of money there probably compared to us, but in no way did they feel backward or any different. They felt just as advanced as us, just in a different way.
Yeah, I think there's a lot we can learn from places like that. On the one hand, they are as they are because they've been so isolated, but the more we can have access to them rather than them getting the bad stuff from us, I think the better. There's an awful lot we can learn from societies like that do look after their older people, that do appreciate people as they age, and where it's seen completely differently.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
How wonderful. Oh, that's one of the places I really would love to go at some stage. It's so expensive to go, isn't it?
Well, they've actually just changed the tourist tax. So it used to be you had to pay this like $200 a day. And now if you go for 8 days, you've only got to pay 4 days worth of the tourist tax and things like that. So they're introducing, because they're all about, they're one of the only countries I'm aware of that has kind of put its money where its mouth is in terms of over tourism and the environment by saying, no, we are going to hinder our industry by introducing this tax. But I think it was a little heavy after COVID. So I think this idea they've got now of don't come just for a couple of days. You've got to stay for a little while. And if you stay for longer, we'll incentivize that. It's great.
Excellent. Oh, yeah, I'm very jealous about that. Wow. So tell us a little bit about the Interesting Facts website. What is that all about? I understand the dogs and the cats, but the Interesting Facts, what do you get to do on that?
Well, I bought this website, right, called newinterestingfacts.com. And I thought, oh, great, they've got like 100 articles. This is really good, a good start. And I had to get rid of virtually every single one of them. As when I got underneath it, they were not well written. They hadn't really been researched, etc. So the fact site is literally about that. And I sort of specialize in certain areas. So I do a lot on animals. So it'll be, 25 interesting facts about lions, or I do a lot on history as well. and quite a bit on psychology, which I really love actually, which is really interesting, like psychological facts about different things. So yeah, I try a whole variety of things. I mean, I'm not sure. It's an older audience. You can't tell with Google. I don't know whether it's really a bunch of school kids that are also like just checking my articles and putting them into ChatGPT. I have no idea. But yeah, it's sort of, it's my smallest site. But it sort of ticks along nicely, and it's kind of quite interesting.
I think I can see from you that you're multi-passionate and you're just interested in all sorts of different things. So I think having a newinterestingfacts.com website seems to be perfect, actually, to sort of fill that space that you just want to find stuff out and write interesting things. And
oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's a really fun one, actually, when I'm researching what the articles should be. And you think, oh, yes, I'm very interested in that. And I use an agency for writers. Like I write a lot of the travel content myself, but I have an agency, but I can't write all the content on 4 websites. So I'll be often quite excited on some when I'm like, oh, good, the article's in. Excellent. I'm curious what they've kind of come up with because I'm sort of the editor in that situation.
Brilliant. So what about social media? Do you use that in your business at all?
You know, I do, but to be honest, if I didn't have to, I'd give it all up tomorrow, that question. So on my dog and cat sites, I have social media. I really don't post on it. It's sort of a different kind of business model, I think. You're either going to go, I want to turn my cat into a character on Instagram or TikTok. So usually just doing video, and that's what I'm going to focus on because it takes time to make those videos and to make good ones. And also those platforms like you to post very consistently. So you need to have a lot of content, and to try and do that and a website to me is just too much. So I don't really do much on those ones, but travel, I do more. I actually really like Instagram stories because I love it when I'm places, I'm taking photos and little video bits and uploading them. And then I do sort of little videos, which are reels on Instagram, and I'll put those onto TikTok. And a lot of it I enjoy doing. But as I said, to be honest, if I didn't have to, because tourism boards and things like that love it, I'd probably stop tomorrow, or I'd be doing it quite infrequently, if you know what I mean. But my real passion is my websites. That's what I love doing and managing. That's the thing that I enjoy the most. Sort of my own little magazines, basically.
So do you consider yourself an influencer?
No, I can't. I think of an influencer as, you know, a woman wearing a long billowing dress and her hair flying out from behind, you know, somewhere on a Greek island. And I kind of feel like influencers are sort of like models, you know, and it's their accounts are about them and them in places looking as good or as interesting as possible. And I think particularly when you're older, I'm just not interested in that. And I really don't think my audience wants to see me in that. I always feel like who I'm writing for, I always joke, my best friend lives in New York. I always joke I write for her. I'm trying to give her so this place was really good. Here's somewhere a bit interesting. You know, someone told me about this place, but I didn't get to go. So why don't you check it out? That's much more my style. And there will be some photos of me doing it, so you know that that's me that was there. But I don't think I've got the patience to do the whole photo shoot preparation or anything like that as well. So I kind of think there's influencer people and then there's sort of digital publishers like me. I think we're quite separate.
But you're definitely influencing people's decisions about where they go, aren't you?
Well, I think it's probably more once they know where they're going, because most people find my website because they type something into Google. So they'll type in, you know, things to do in New York City or something, and I'll come up. And then it'll help them make the decision, am I going to go to that place? And it'll help them decide once I'm there, these are the things I'd like to do. There might be a little bit on Instagram that you drive awareness and give people ideas about things. But I think where I most come into myself is that, hey, remember we saw that article on Austria last year? Let's have a look at that and see whether we want to go.
And is there anything you miss from your previous life, or is it just so brilliant now that there's nothing you would have liked to have kept of what you were doing before?
The only thing I miss is kind of the community you had at work, and obviously the people you liked, but you had your sort of workmates, and I worked a lot with like advertising agencies and media agencies and things like that. So I miss that sense of community and being part of something together, of building a brand and doing that. But it's not all or nothing, because travel blogging has an awesome community, and London probably is almost the center of that community. Plus the whole world of websites has its own community as well, which is mostly online. So I've got that a bit, but that's the thing I miss the most, is that kind of office banter, that sort of, mucking around conversations, that company. Yeah, that's the thing I miss the most.
Yeah, being a solopreneur can be quite solo sometimes, can't it? You've really got to make more of an effort to put those social things into your life, haven't you? Because it's not just going to happen.
Definitely. And it's taken me a long time, I think, to get comfortable with that, and I guess to find my way of doing it, in all honesty, because, some people go to a workspace or do all of that. But what I didn't want is a return to I've got to get up and leave the house by 8:00, bring everything with me. Do you know what I mean? It's so nice that you can kind of decide what you're going to do. My gym now actually has some areas where you can work. So now I'm kind of combining the gym with that. And I try and plan my week, where there's going to be interactions and stuff every day. And I guess I'm lucky with the travel bit, because then about a third of the time I'm traveling. So then often when I get home, I just don't want to leave the house. Do you know what I mean? I want to stay home for a few days and not go anywhere. So then it's really nice to be working on my own.
Yeah. Wow. I love the idea of the gym having space for you to work. That's really good. That sounds a bit like the talking table in Thailand, which I think was also a brilliant idea.
Exactly. Why doesn't everywhere have a talking table? Like, honestly, I think most restaurants should have it, right?
I think it's a fantastic idea. Yeah.
It's such a good idea. And with my gym's great. It's in West London, and it's kind of privately owned. So, they really invest in it. So there's lots of great areas to work from, and they have lots of great classes. So yeah, that's working really well for me. But as I said, I tried lots of things. Like I tried co-working spaces before COVID, but I just found I didn't really use them, or I kind of went there more because I felt like, I've joined, I have to. And if you want to get the benefits and meet a lot of people, you've really got to be there a lot. And that, I don't really want to be somewhere a lot. So as I said, it's not been quick to get to a life that you go, now I'm pretty comfortable with this most of the time. It's taken quite a while for me.
And then I guess you've just got to have faith. You've got to have confidence that it's going to come, right?
Yeah, and just keep trying things, I guess. And yeah, I'm lucky that I know a lot of other bloggers and people in websites. So I know a lot of other people that struggle because they're not part of these communities anymore. And so we'll swap tips, and you're not alone in it then, which I think is a really big help.
Yeah, because that's how we met, because I came to your meetup because we are both in the Mediavine network, and I went to the London meetup and met Amanda. So it was really good, and that was it was important for me to do that, because often I'm working away at home and I have a big online community, but very rarely do I actually get out into real life and meet people. So that was really nice to do.
Yeah, and that was actually my idea to do that. I just decided I'm just going to set up a group for London, because like you, I wanted to see people face to face. I have got online stuff, but I would always prefer to see people face to face. And maybe that's our age, I don't know, but that's what I prefer. And I liked that idea. And also if people were traveling and coming to London, they had a place if they were also a Mediavine publisher. And and also I just think there's so much you can learn from each other with websites. The internet is a big, big place. And I never get worried about people copying me or stealing from me, because you know what? Anybody can do that anytime. And I'm very much into, you help each other out, and it always seems to work out for me. You just, I'll help out people with something, and maybe I'll get something back, maybe I won't, but it all seems to work out.
But I think that is actually a very important lesson in life is, if you do give out with no expectation of something in return, then often you will get something in return, won't you? It swings and roundabouts. There's a lot to be said for karma, I think,
Oh, totally. And also, again, of going into any relationship with anybody with a positive intent of course I'm going to think you're going to do the right thing by me. Of course I'm going to think that's all good. Like I'm not an inherently suspicious person, I guess, but so as I said, some people see it as, golly, you're going to copy me. And having come from the background I have in marketing, where people absolutely copy what you do, your competitors always will. That's what's going to happen. You've got to kind of get ahead, and you're sort of used to that. That's normal. That's life. But I guess it gets a bit more personal when it's your photos, your stuff, your article ideas.
Do you think that openness is possibly more of an Aussie trait than a British one?
Partly, but also I think it's probably more about me being an optimistic, positive person. Like I always say, my glass is always half full, that I'll assume the best of people till I'm proven wrong. And I don't think that's necessarily Australian English or any particular type. I know lots of suspicious Australian people as well.
There's a lot of negative British people, I have to say. There's a lot of,
And Australians as well, and all around the world, right? Like,
right, not being too negative about the Brits.
Definitely.
So, of everything that you've learnt in your midlife transition and changing what you're doing and travelling, what would you most like women of our age to know?
I think for me, the thing is, we're not old. We're getting older, but we're not old. And I don't know about you, but I plan on being in good health for a pretty darn long time. I sort of see I'm in the beginning of the back half is kind of how I like to think about it. And I think a lot of people in our age group or older get very intimidated by the online world. And I'm sorry, I probably exacerbated that by throwing out terms like SEO and everything at the beginning. As I said, the reality is the whole online world is all about the 99.9% of people around the world that have no idea how Google works, no idea whatsoever. They're just typing things. It's all the same human needs. They're just typing something in their computer going, where are the best places to go in Santa Monica? They're doing that, not having any idea how it all works. And that's what Google wants, because Google makes its money from serving up ads to those people. And it's as simple as that. And I always try to explain to people what I do. I'm just a magazine. I'm online. And instead of knowing how to write a really good headline and what things to put on the front cover and inside so people want to read it, that is SEO in my world. That's knowing what people are typing into Google and how to write the content that will satisfy what those people want. So I guess that's my other big thing is for our age group, do not be intimidated by the online world. It is not that hard. It uses all the skills you've already got. And don't get too bogged down by the acronyms, etc., because at the end of the day, they all mean very simple common sense things that you will completely understand.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Magnificent Midlife Podcast. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, follow, and share it. Also, giving a 5-star review really helps get the word out. You'll find the show notes at magnificentmidlife.com. That's also where you can get my book, Magnificent Midlife, Transform Your Middle Years, Menopause and Beyond. Make the very best of your next chapter. Help me change the world, one magnificent midlife woman at a time.